The dire situation. The galaxy was in a state of despair. The Zorath, a ruthless and highly advanced alien race, had pushed the Allied forces to the brink of annihilation. For months, the battle had raged on, and every day seemed to bring new signs of defeat. The Zorath's ships were everywhere, their weapons powerful and their tactics ruthless. They had a way of crushing their enemies that seemed unstoppable. The Allied forces, a mix of different races and civilizations, were struggling. Their fleets were battered and their morale was low. Many planets had already fallen, and the once proud defense lines were now just memories. The once hopeful defenders were now facing the grim reality that their chances of victory were slipping away. The Allied leaders knew they needed a miracle. They had tried everything they could think of, from advanced weapons to desperate maneuvers, but nothing seemed to make a difference. The Zorath's dominance was clear, and the Allies were running out of options. The Zorath had not only the advantage of superior technology, but also a strategic brilliance that left the Allies scrambling. On the galactic communication channels, news of the ongoing struggle was broadcasted. Across the galaxy, people watched with growing concern. The tales of lost worlds and fallen heroes were becoming common. The once hopeful message of a united front was now tinged with a sense of dread. The Zorath's victories were being celebrated in their own territories, and the Allies' defeats were making headlines everywhere. In a desperate move, the Allied command convened a meeting of their top leaders. The room was filled with tension and worry. The leaders knew that their current strategies were failing, and they faced a grim decision. There was one last option they hadn't explored: the humans. Humans were a mysterious and distant race. Legends and rumors spoke of their past glory and their incredible achievements, but they were believed to be extinct or irrelevant to current galactic affairs. The stories of their once great empire had faded into myth, and few believed they could still make a difference. But with the galaxy's future hanging in the balance, the leaders decided to reach out. They sent out a desperate message, hoping that someone somewhere would hear their call. The message was a plea for help, a final attempt to turn the tide of the war. It was filled with a mix of hope and skepticism, knowing that it was a long shot but feeling it was their only chance. As the message was broadcasted, a sense of anticipation and doubt spread across the galaxy. Many wondered if the humans would respond, or if they were indeed lost to history. The message was sent with the hope that the humans, if they were still out there, could bring the strength and ingenuity needed to fight the Zorath. The battle was still raging, and every day seemed to bring new losses. The Allies' remaining forces were trying their best to hold the line, but their strength was waning. The Zorath's relentless assault showed no signs of slowing down. The galaxy was on the brink of falling into darkness, and the Allies were grasping at the faintest glimmer of hope that the humans might be able to save them. In this moment of crisis, the galaxy's fate rested on the hope that the humans would rise to the challenge. The call for help was not just a plea for soldiers. It was a desperate cry for a change that could turn the tide of the war. As the universe held its breath, the question remained: would the humans answer the call and become the galaxy's last hope? This was the situation as the Allies awaited any sign of the humans' response. The galaxy was teetering on the edge of destruction, and the only thing that could possibly change their fate was the arrival of a force long forgotten, but not entirely lost. The call for help. The galaxy was in turmoil, and hope seemed like a distant dream. The Allied forces, having exhausted every strategy, now looked to their last option: the humans. The decision to reach out for help was not taken lightly, but it was the only choice left. The leaders knew they had to make a call that could either save them or lead to complete failure. In a secure command center, the highest-ranking officials of the Allied forces gathered. The room was filled with maps, holographic displays, and anxious faces. The atmosphere was tense as they prepared to send their message across the stars. They had to craft a plea that conveyed their desperation, but also inspired any potential rescuers. The message needed to be clear and compelling. The message was simple yet urgent. It began with a detailed account of the current situation, The galaxy was under attack by the Zorith, a seemingly invincible alien force. The Allied fleets were dwindling, their planets falling one by one, and their hope for victory was fading fast. The leaders described the desperate need for help and made it clear that the humans were their last hope. The message was sent using the most advanced technology available, broadcasting it across known and unknown regions of space. It reached distant star systems, old communication relays, and even some forgotten outposts. The message was not just a broadcast. It was a beacon of hope, hoping that someone somewhere would hear and respond. As the message traveled through space, it reached various corners of the galaxy. Different races and civilizations tuned in, each reacting with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Some believed that the humans were nothing more than a myth, while others remembered old stories of their once great empire. The broadcast sparked discussions and debates among the galaxy's inhabitants. On the distant edge of the galaxy, in a hidden corner of space, the message finally reached the long-forgotten human fleet. The humans, who had been in isolation for many years, were taken by surprise. Their advanced communication systems picked up the signal, and the message was delivered to their leaders. For a moment, there was silence as the humans processed the gravity of the situation. The human leaders, seasoned by years of isolation and reflection, were faced with a critical choice. They had kept themselves hidden from the galaxy, focusing on their own recovery and rebuilding. But now, they saw that their old enemies, the Zorith, were threatening the very fabric of the galaxy. The message was a call for help, and it was directed at them. After careful consideration, the human leaders decided to act. They knew that their advanced technology and combat experience could make a difference. The decision to respond was not just about military strategy. It was also about a sense of duty and a desire to help those in need. The humans had always been known for their resilience and bravery, and this was a chance to prove it once again. Preparations began immediately. The human fleet, which had been lying dormant, was reactivated. Ships were brought out of their hidden bases, and crews were assembled. The humans were readying themselves for what could be the most important mission of their existence. They had to act quickly, as the galaxy's fate was hanging by a thread. The response was prepared with a clear and straightforward message. "We have received your call. Help is on the way." The humans made sure to convey their commitment and readiness to join the fight. Their message was sent back across the galaxy, reassuring the allies that they were coming. As the human fleet prepared to join the fray, anticipation grew among the allies. The arrival of the humans was seen as a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. The message had been sent, and now the galaxy awaited the arrival of the force that could potentially turn the tide of the war. The stage was set, and the next chapter of this galactic struggle was about to begin. Arrival of the humans. The galaxy held its breath as the long-awaited arrival of the human fleet drew nearer. The allies, weary and battered from their relentless struggle against the Zorith, looked to the stars with a mixture of hope and skepticism. The message from the humans had been received, and now the galaxy awaited proof of their promise. In the heart of the conflict, the Allied command centers buzzed with activity. The anticipation was palpable as sensors and communication arrays scanned the skies for any sign of the incoming fleet. The Zorith, ever vigilant, were also monitoring the situation, unaware of the surprise that was about to unfold. Suddenly, a series of blips appeared on the sensors. At first, they were faint and distant, but they grew stronger and clearer. The Allied commanders, their eyes fixed on the display screens, could hardly believe what they were seeing. The humans were coming, and their approach was nothing short of awe-inspiring. As the human fleet emerged from the edge of the galaxy, it was clear they were not just another force. They were a game-changer. Their ships, sleek and formidable, were unlike anything the Allies had seen before. The advanced technology and design of the human vessels were evident from the moment they appeared. Each ship seemed to radiate a sense of power and precision. The human fleet consisted of massive carriers, agile fighters, and heavily armed destroyers. The carriers, in particular, were a sight to behold. Their size was immense, and they seemed to glow with an inner energy. The Allied forces had never seen such advanced and imposing spacecraft, and the sight of them filled their hearts with renewed hope. The arrival of the humans was marked by a display of advanced tactics. As soon as the human ships came into range, they immediately began to deploy their fighters and establish a defensive perimeter. The precision and coordination of their movements were striking, showcasing their readiness and expertise. The Allies watched in awe as the human fleet seamlessly integrated with their own forces. The human ships quickly took command of key positions, their advanced sensors and weaponry providing a critical boost to the Allied defenses. The once dim prospects of victory began to brighten as the humans began to take the fight to the Zoreth. The Zoreth, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of such a formidable force, scrambled to adjust their strategies. They had expected an ordinary reinforcement, but the humans were anything but ordinary. The Zoreth's confidence was shaken, and their initial arrogance began to waver. The human fleet's arrival was not just a tactical advantage, it was a morale booster. The Allied troops, who had been fighting with dwindling hope, now saw a glimmer of light in the darkness. The human ships, with their advanced technology and impressive firepower, inspired a renewed sense of determination and courage. In the command centers, the Allied leaders breathed a sigh of relief. The humans had delivered on their promise, and their presence was already making a significant impact. The human fleet's advanced weaponry and strategic acumen were turning the tide of the battle. The Zoreth's relentless assault was beginning to falter under the pressure of this new and powerful force. As the battle continued, the human ships demonstrated their combat prowess. They engaged the Zoreth with precision and skill, their tactics proving to be a game-changer. The once dominant Zoreth were now on the defensive, struggling to cope with the new threat. The Allied forces, inspired by the human intervention, began to push back with renewed vigor. The arrival of the humans was a turning point in the galaxy's struggle. Their ships, their technology, and their determination were a beacon of hope in a time of despair. The galaxy's last hope had arrived, and with it, the promise of a new chapter in the fight against the Zoreth. As the battle raged on, the Allies and the humans stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The human strategy. With the human fleet now fully integrated into the Allied forces, it was time to turn the tide of the war. The Allied commanders and human leaders gathered in a high-tech war room, ready to discuss their next move. The room was filled with holographic maps and data displays, and the air was thick with anticipation. The human commander, Admiral Kiera, took center stage. She was known for her strategic brilliance and calm demeanor under pressure. Her team of officers and advisors were equally skilled, and together they had crafted a strategy that they hoped would make a significant difference. Admiral Kiera began by explaining the key elements of their plan. The human strategy was based on several core principles: agility, surprise, and precision. They intended to use their advanced technology to outmaneuver the Zoreth and strike at their most vulnerable points. First, the humans planned to launch a series of hit-and-run attacks. Their fighters and smaller ships were highly maneuverable and well-suited for quick, decisive strikes. The goal was to disrupt the Zoreth's supply lines and communication networks. By targeting these critical systems, they hoped to weaken the Zoreth's ability to coordinate their attacks. Next, the human fleet would focus on employing their stealth technology. Many of their ships were equipped with advanced cloaking devices that made them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. Using these ships, the humans planned to conduct covert operations behind enemy lines. They aimed to carry out surprise attacks on key Zoreth installations, such as their command centers and weapons factories. The third element of the strategy was to create a series of diversionary tactics. The humans intended to use their advanced electronic warfare capabilities to jam Zoreth communications and sensors. This would create confusion among the Zoreth forces and draw their attention away from the main points of attack. With the Zoreth distracted, the Allied forces would be able to press their advantage more effectively. The final component of the plan was a coordinated offensive. The human fleet would work closely with the Allied forces to launch a series of simultaneous attacks on the Zoreth's main strongholds. By hitting multiple targets at once, they hoped to overwhelm the Zoreth and force them into a defensive posture. As Admiral Kiera outlined the plan, the room filled with nods of agreement. The Allied leaders were impressed by the human approach. It was clear that their strategy was not just about brute force, but also about using intelligence and technology to gain the upper hand. The combination of agility, stealth, and coordination promised to be a powerful counter to the Zoreth's overwhelming strength. The Allied forces quickly began to implement the plan. Human fighters and stealth ships were dispatched to their designated targets, and electronic warfare teams set up their equipment to disrupt Zoreth communications. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful as everyone prepared for the next phase of the battle. The first wave of attacks began as the humans executed their hit-and-run tactics. The Zoreth were caught off guard by the speed and effectiveness of the strikes. Their supply lines were disrupted, and their communication networks were thrown into disarray. The confusion among the Zoreth forces was evident, and the Allies seized the opportunity to make gains on the battlefield. The covert operations also proved successful. Human stealth ships managed to carry out surprise attacks on several key Zoreth installations. The destruction of command centers and weapons factories had a noticeable impact on the Zoreth's ability to sustain their offensive. The Zoreth's once unyielding assault began to falter. The diversionary tactics further compounded the Zoreth's difficulties. With their communications and sensors jammed, the Zoreth struggled to respond effectively to the coordinated attacks. The Allies, buoyed by the success of the initial phases of the plan, pressed their advantage with renewed energy. As the battle continued, it was clear that the human strategy was working. The Zoreth were being pushed back, and the tide of the war was beginning to turn. The combination of human ingenuity and Allied determination was proving to be a formidable force against the Zoreth's once dominant position. The human strategy had injected new hope into the galaxy's struggle. The Allies saw a glimmer of victory on the horizon, and the humans' innovative tactics had shown that they were a powerful ally in the fight against the Zoreth. With each successful operation, the promise of a brighter future grew ever closer. The turnaround begins. As the human fleet continued to implement their strategy, the tide of the war began to shift. The Zoreth, once confident in their dominance, were now facing a series of unexpected setbacks. The initial success of the human tactics had started to turn the battle in favor of the Allies. The first sign of change was the noticeable drop in the Zoreth's offensive pressure. The hit-and-run attacks launched by the human fighters had taken a toll on their supply lines. Essential resources, such as fuel and ammunition, were becoming scarce. The Zoreth's once unstoppable advance was beginning to falter. In the command centers of the Allied forces, there was a renewed sense of optimism. The human strategy had been in full swing for several days, and the results were becoming evident. Allied leaders and soldiers alike were invigorated by the progress. The once dismal outlook was now filled with cautious hope. One of the key successes of the human plan was the disruption of Zoreth communications. The electronic warfare teams had succeeded in creating chaos within the Zoreth ranks. Their communications were scrambled, and their ability to coordinate attacks was severely compromised. This confusion among the Zoreth forces provided the Allies with a crucial advantage. On the battlefield, the Allies began to see tangible results. The Zoreth, struggling to respond to the coordinated assaults, found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned. The human stealth ships, which had been conducting covert operations behind enemy lines, continued to deliver successful strikes. Key Zoreth installations were being destroyed, and their once impenetrable defenses were starting to crumble. The human-led offensive on Zoreth strongholds was another turning point. With precision and coordination, the human fleet, in concert with the Allied forces, launched a series of simultaneous attacks on critical targets. The Zoreth's strongholds, previously considered invulnerable, were now under heavy assault. The combined force of the humans and the Allies was proving to be a formidable challenge for the Zoreth. The change in momentum was also reflected in the morale of the Allied forces. Soldiers who had once been disheartened by constant losses now felt a surge of energy and determination. The sight of the human fleet in action, with its advanced technology and strategic prowess, was a powerful motivator. The Allies began to fight with renewed vigor, inspired by the success of their new allies. In the midst of this turnaround, the Zoreth were forced to adapt quickly. Their leaders, who had once been confident of victory, were now scrambling to respond to the unexpected challenges. The Zoreth's once clear plans were being disrupted, and their ability to maintain their dominance was being questioned. The human fleet's impact was evident in the shifting dynamics of the battlefield. The Zoreth, previously aggressive and unyielding, were now being pushed back. The Allies, buoyed by the success of their joint operations, began to reclaim lost ground. The battle that had seemed hopeless was now filled with possibilities. As the days went by, the signs of victory grew stronger. The Zoreth's strongholds, once thought impregnable, were beginning to fall. The human strategy had proven effective, and the tide of the war was turning in favor of the Allies. The sense of impending defeat that had plagued the galaxy was being replaced by a sense of cautious optimism. The turnaround was not yet complete, but the progress was undeniable. The combined efforts of the humans and the Allies had breathed new life into the struggle. The Zoreth, once seen as an unstoppable force, were now facing a challenge they had not anticipated. The galaxy, once on the brink of despair, was now witnessing a dramatic shift in its fortunes. The turnaround had begun, and with it came a renewed sense of hope. The battle was far from over, but the arrival of the humans and their successful strategy had given the Allies a fighting chance. The galaxy watched with bated breath as the conflict continued, eager to see how this new chapter would unfold. The key battle. The momentum had shifted, and the Allies, alongside the human fleet, prepared for what was hoped to be the decisive battle of the war. The Zoreth, pushed back and under pressure, had regrouped and were now preparing for a critical stand. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The key battle was to take place near a crucial system known as the Vorten sector. It was a strategic location that housed important Zoreth supply depots and command centers. The Allies and humans knew that capturing or destroying these assets could cripple the Zoreth's war effort and bring them one step closer to victory. The Allied command centers were abuzz with activity as the final preparations were made. The human fleet, fresh from its recent successes, was at the forefront of the operation. Admiral Kiera and her team had carefully planned every detail of the assault. Their strategy was designed to exploit the Zoreth's weakened defenses and deliver a decisive blow. The battle began with a coordinated assault. Human fighters and Allied ships surged forward, launching a barrage of missiles and energy blasts at the Zoreth positions. The initial wave of attacks was intended to overwhelm the Zoreth defenses and create openings for the main assault force. The Zoreth, taken aback by the intensity of the attack, scrambled to respond. Their once formidable defenses were now stretched thin, and their ability to coordinate a defense was hampered by the ongoing electronic warfare. The Zoreth's leaders, desperate to hold their ground, issued orders for a counterattack. Amid the chaos, the human stealth ships moved into position. Using their advanced cloaking technology, they silently approached key Zoreth targets. The stealth ships' mission was to disable the Zoreth's command centers and disrupt their ability to coordinate the battle. The success of this mission was crucial to the overall outcome of the conflict. As the human stealth ships carried out their attacks, the Zoreth command centers were thrown into disarray. The once coordinated Zoreth response was now fragmented, with various units struggling to communicate and regroup. The Allies, seizing the opportunity, pressed their attack with renewed vigor. The key battle saw intense fighting across multiple fronts. Human destroyers, armed with advanced weapons and shields, engaged Zoreth warships in fierce combat. The human fleet's superior tactics and firepower were on full display as they methodically dismantled the Zoreth defenses. On the ground, Allied forces began their assault on Zoreth-controlled planets within the Vorten sector. The Zoreth's control over these worlds was weakening, and the Allies worked to liberate them from enemy occupation. The ground battles were brutal, but the Allies, fueled by the success of the space combat, fought with determination and bravery. The tide of the battle turned as the human fleet and Allied forces pushed deeper into Zoreth territory. Key Zoreth positions were falling one by one, and the once formidable Zoreth defenses were crumbling. The Zoreth, realizing the severity of their situation, attempted a desperate last stand. The final phase of the battle was a fierce clash between the remaining Zoreth forces and the combined might of the humans and Allies. The Zoreth, now isolated and outnumbered, fought with a ferocity born of desperation. The battle raged on, with each side taking heavy losses. In the end, the combined strength of the human fleet and the Allied forces proved too much for the Zoreth. The key battle, which had been a turning point in the conflict, ended in a decisive victory for the Allies. The Zoreth's defenses were shattered, and their command structure was in ruins. The aftermath of the key battle was a mix of relief and reflection. The Allies, alongside their human comrades, had achieved a significant victory. The Zoreth, once seen as an unstoppable force, were now in retreat. The galaxy, battered and scarred, began to look towards a future shaped by the outcome of this crucial conflict. The victory in the key battle was a testament to the effectiveness of the human strategy and the bravery of all those involved. The tide had turned, and the galaxy was on the path to recovery. The combined efforts of the Allies and the humans had proven that, even in the darkest of times, hope and determination could lead to triumph. The turning point. The galaxy was still recovering from the intense and decisive key battle, but a new sense of optimism filled the air. The victory had marked a crucial turning point in the war against the Zoreth, and the Allies, bolstered by the human fleet, now faced the challenge of capitalizing on their newfound advantage. In the aftermath of the battle, the Allied and human forces worked tirelessly to consolidate their gains. The Vorten sector, once a stronghold of the Zoreth, was now under Allied control. The Allies began to rebuild and reinforce their positions, preparing for the next phase of their campaign. The Zoreth, reeling from their defeat, were forced to retreat to their remaining strongholds. Their once mighty fleet was now diminished, and their command structure was in disarray. The defeat had shaken their confidence and morale, leaving them vulnerable to further attacks. Admiral Kiera and her team were well aware of the significance of this moment. The turning point had arrived, and it was crucial to maintain the momentum. The human strategy had been effective, but the next steps would determine if the galaxy could be brought to lasting peace. The human fleet, having demonstrated their prowess in battle, now focused on a series of coordinated operations designed to exploit the Zoreth's weakened state. The plan was to launch a series of targeted strikes aimed at key Zoreth facilities, cutting off their remaining resources and crippling their ability to wage war. One of the primary targets was the Zoreth's main shipyard, located on a remote planet deep within their territory. This facility was essential for producing and repairing Zoreth warships, and its destruction would significantly hinder their ability to rebuild their forces. The Allies, guided by human intelligence and technology, prepared for a precision strike. The attack on the shipyard was executed with military precision. Human stealth ships infiltrated the facility's defenses, planting explosive charges and disrupting critical systems. Meanwhile, Allied forces launched a diversionary assault on nearby Zoreth positions, drawing attention away from the main operation. The combination of stealth and diversion proved highly effective, and the shipyard was successfully destroyed. The destruction of the shipyard was a significant blow to the Zoreth. With their primary production facility in ruins, their ability to replace lost warships was severely compromised. The Allies, seizing the opportunity, pressed their advantage by launching additional attacks on other Zoreth strongholds. The turning point was not just a military victory, but also a psychological one. The Zoreth, once feared and invincible, were now seen as vulnerable and retreating. The morale of the Allied forces was high, and the success of the human strategy had instilled a sense of hope and determination throughout the galaxy. The Zorath, realizing the gravity of their situation, attempted to regroup and counter the Allied advances. However, their efforts were hampered by the ongoing disruptions and the effective coordination of the human-led operations. The Zorath's response was disjointed and less effective, further weakening their position. The Allies, guided by the insights and expertise of the human fleet, continued their offensive with renewed vigor. Key Zorath positions were targeted and captured, and the once strong Zorath defenses began to crumble under the pressure. The turning point had set the stage for a series of victories that would shape the future of the galaxy. In the midst of this shift, the galaxy's inhabitants began to envision a future free from the threat of the Zorath. The successful implementation of the human strategy and the subsequent victories had provided a glimmer of hope. The turning point was not just a moment of triumph, but also a promise of a new era of peace and stability. As the Allies and humans pressed forward, the focus was on securing their gains and preparing for the final stages of the conflict. The turning point had shifted the balance of power, and the path to victory was now within reach. The galaxy, once on the brink of despair, now looked towards a future where the combined strength of humanity and their allies had changed the course of history. The victory. The war against the Zorath was drawing to a close. After the key battle and the turning point, the Allies and the human fleet had gained significant ground. The once mighty Zorath Empire, battered and on the defensive, was now facing its final days of resistance. The galaxy, once shrouded in darkness and uncertainty, began to glimpse the light of victory. In the heart of the Allied command center, preparations for the final assault were underway. The Allied leaders and human commanders, including Admiral Kiera, reviewed their plans with focused determination. The goal was clear: to deliver the decisive blow that would end the Zorath threat once and for all. The target was a major Zorath stronghold, known as the Korthar Fortress. This fortress was not only a strategic military base, but also a symbol of Zorath power. Its capture or destruction would signal the end of the Zorath's ability to wage war. The final operation was planned with precision, incorporating the lessons learned from previous battles and the strengths of the human strategy. As the final assault commenced, the Allied forces launched a coordinated attack on the Korthar fortress. Human fighters, equipped with the latest technology, led the charge. Their superior agility and firepower proved crucial in breaching the fortress's defenses. Allied warships, supporting the attack, unleashed a relentless barrage of missiles and energy blasts, targeting key points within the fortress. The Zorath, caught off guard by the intensity of the assault, struggled to mount an effective defense. Their command structure was in disarray, and their remaining forces were disorganized and demoralized. The once imposing fortress now seemed vulnerable and overwhelmed. Amidst the chaos, human stealth ships carried out a critical mission. They infiltrated the fortress's inner sanctum and planted explosive charges on key infrastructure. The goal was to cripple the Zorath's ability to resist and disrupt their remaining operations. The success of this mission was vital to ensuring the final victory. On the ground, Allied troops launched a simultaneous assault on the fortress's surface. The battle was fierce, with both sides engaging in intense combat. The Allied forces, driven by their recent successes and the promise of victory, fought with unwavering determination. The human-led strategy, which had proven effective throughout the conflict, continued to guide their actions. As the battle raged on, the Zorath's defenses began to crumble. The Korthar fortress, once a symbol of Zorath might, was now engulfed in flames and explosions. The explosive charges planted by the human stealth ships had caused critical damage, further weakening the Zorath's ability to resist. The final stages of the battle saw the Allies pushing deeper into the fortress. The Zorath, unable to sustain their defense, were forced into a retreat. The once feared stronghold was now under the control of the Allied forces. The victory was within reach. As the last Zorath defenders were driven out, the galaxy erupted in celebration. The long and grueling conflict had come to an end, and the Zorath threat had been eliminated. The Allies and the human fleet had achieved a decisive victory, and the galaxy could now begin the process of rebuilding and recovery. The victory was not just a military achievement, but a testament to the resilience and courage of all those involved. The human fleet, with its innovative strategies and unwavering resolve, had played a crucial role in turning the tide of the war. The Allied forces, united in their struggle, had overcome overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. In the aftermath of the victory, the galaxy began to heal from the scars of war. The once dominant Zorath Empire was no more, and the threat of their tyranny had been vanquished. The Allies and the humans, having forged a strong bond through their shared struggle, looked forward to a future of peace and prosperity. The victory marked a new chapter in the galaxy's history. The combined strength and determination of humanity and their allies had brought an end to the conflict. The galaxy, once teetering on the brink of despair, now stood on the path to a brighter and more hopeful future. The legacy of the victory would be remembered as a symbol of unity, courage, and the enduring spirit of those who fought for a better tomorrow. A new era. The war was over, and the galaxy was entering a new era. The defeat of the Zorath had brought peace to a region that had known only conflict and fear for so long. As the dust settled from the final battle, the galaxy's inhabitants began to rebuild their lives and look forward to a future of hope and opportunity. The Allied forces and the human fleet, now celebrated as heroes, were instrumental in ushering in this new era. Admiral Kiera and her team were recognized for their strategic brilliance and leadership. The human fleet, with its advanced technology and innovative tactics, had played a pivotal role in achieving victory. The galaxy's inhabitants looked up to them as symbols of resilience and unity. In the aftermath of the war, the focus shifted to reconstruction and healing. The once war-torn planets, devastated by years of conflict, began to receive aid and support. The Allies, with the help of the human fleet, worked tirelessly to rebuild infrastructure, restore essential services, and bring stability to the affected regions. The process was challenging, but there was a shared determination to restore peace and prosperity. The galaxy's leaders convened to discuss the future. They recognized that the war had exposed vulnerabilities and that it was crucial to establish a new framework for cooperation and security. The formation of the Galactic Unity Council was proposed. This council would be a collaborative body, bringing together representatives from various planets and species to ensure mutual respect, cooperation, and collective security. It aimed to prevent future conflicts and promote peace across the galaxy. The Galactic Unity Council's formation marked a significant milestone. It was a testament to the lessons learned from the war and the commitment to building a better future. The Council's first acts included setting up diplomatic missions, developing trade agreements, and establishing joint defense initiatives. The goal was to create a cohesive and cooperative galaxy where disputes were resolved through dialogue rather than conflict. As the new era began, cultural and scientific exchanges flourished. The diverse civilizations that had once been isolated or in conflict now came together to share knowledge and ideas. Human technology and expertise, combined with the innovations of other species, led to advancements that benefited everyone. The once separate worlds were now connected through collaboration and mutual respect. One of the most profound changes was the focus on education and understanding. The new era emphasized the importance of learning from the past and fostering a culture of tolerance and empathy. Educational programs were established to teach the history of the war and the value of unity. Schools and institutions across the galaxy began to promote a shared vision of peace and cooperation. In the midst of this transformation, the human fleet continued to play a crucial role. Their experiences and insights were invaluable in guiding the galaxy through this period of change. The human fleet, now a symbol of hope and strength, helped to mentor and support the newly formed Galactic Unity Council. Their presence was a reassuring reminder of the galaxy's ability to overcome adversity. The citizens of the galaxy embraced the new era with optimism. The scars of war were still visible, but there was a shared sense of determination to build a brighter future. The legacy of the conflict served as a powerful reminder of the importance of unity and cooperation. The lessons learned from the struggle against the Zoreth were now guiding the galaxy towards a new path of peace and prosperity. As the years went by, the galaxy evolved into a more interconnected and harmonious place. The challenges of the past were met with a spirit of resilience and collaboration. The new era was marked by progress, innovation, and a renewed sense of purpose. The once divided galaxy had come together to create a future defined by hope and shared aspirations. The victory over the Zoreth had been a turning point, but the true success lay in the ability of the galaxy to embrace change and build a better world. The new era was a testament to the strength and unity of those who had fought for peace. The galaxy, now united in its pursuit of a brighter future, stood as a beacon of hope for all who looked to the stars.